Hi everyone, Neil Malik from Knack Training here, bringing you another Everyday Office video. In an earlier video, I showed you how to make a waffle chart using conditional formatting. If you haven't seen that one, you can click the link on the side now or down below in the description. And today, what I'm going to use is custom number formatting for almost the same idea. As you can see here, I'm creating a grid that has little people icons in it that's different colors, much like another waffle chart where you would have different color boxes for different types of things. But there are two things going on here. First, of course, these are little people icons, so that might be more engaging for the people that you're talking to. But item number two is that I'm not going to use conditional formatting to do this. I'm going to use instead what's called custom number formatting to make this happen. And by doing that, I'm keeping myself away from using a tool that's constantly recalculating and takes up a lot of spins from the processor. So this type of waffle chart can actually be faster and lighter for the person who's accessing the information than would be the standard waffle chart that you saw me do in the previous video. So let's start off from the beginning. We have some data here. We have employees at our company, and maybe we're trying to analyze, what divisions of our company are getting paid the most, who have the most people, what offices have the most people, things like that. Maybe you do like a little pivot table like this one, and you can see that consulting is 51% of the employees, but only 47% of the salary. Maybe this starts to tell you something, and maybe you want to do a visualization of something along these lines. So the first thing we need to do is figure out what kind of story we want to tell and build a little table that represents that story. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to know what percentage of people working at different offices within the company are consulting folks versus who's everybody else, because we're a consulting company and maybe we want to know how much overhead, how many other people are involved in this process besides the consultants who are doing most of the day-to-day work. So if we're going to do something like that, we need to have some sort of little table that is allowed to demonstrate different pieces of information based off of the office that we're talking about. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a drop-down menu with the offices in it. So I'll go ahead and grab the first office here, use my Control-Shift down arrow keyboard shortcut to select all of the different offices in this table, copy those, and then over here on my calculation tab, I'll just quickly paste that here. You can see, of course, there's like 1,000 San Mateos in here. So we're just going to go up to the data tab at the top of the screen and remove duplicates so that we only have one instance of each of the different offices. So now very easily we'll be able to make a drop-down menu that has San Mateo and Los Angeles and Fountain Valley and all those other on it. And of course, we'll probably want to have these sorted, so I'll just click here and sort Z to A or A to Z. Okay, so we've got our source data here. Now let's go ahead and make a little drop-down menu. So over here in this cell, I'll use my Data tab, use Data Validation, make a list instead of any value. For those of you who would like to see this in more detail, I created a dynamic drop-down menu in yesterday's video. Go ahead and click the link here or down in the description below to see more of how to accomplish that. So you can see here, allow a list. The source of that list is these cells right here. I could make this into a table and make it dynamic, but we're not going to bother with that right now. I'm just going to click OK, and you can see very quickly that I can choose Los Angeles, and now I should be able to make a table over here that tells me how much we're making, how many people are consultants and how many people are not consultants, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and make a little table that is consultants, consulting, because that'll match up with the name of the department, and then I'll put in all others. Now the question is, do I want to count these people? Do I want to add up their salaries, etc.? Let's do salaries here. So I'll do a SUMIF function, SUMIFs function, saying add up all the consultants in Los Angeles. And then down here, I'll say add up everybody in Los Angeles minus the consultants. So here in cell F13, we need the SUMIFs function. That'll be the formulas tab, top of the screen, the math and trig drop-down menu here, to SUMIFs with the S, because I am going to judge whether it's a Los Angeles employee and whether they're consulting. So I'll go SUMIFs. The sum range will be every salary over here in the G column. There we go. Now the criteria range. The first one is which office these people work in. So I'll go over here to my original data, find my offices. There we are. Highlight all those. And the criteria that I'm judging it against, criteria 1, is whether it's Los Angeles or not. If you want to see SUMIFs done a little bit more slowly, check out the video that I created earlier. You can see the link on the side or down in the description here. And then lastly, besides being in Los Angeles, I also care whether you're a consultant or not. So here, criteria range 2, I'll go back to my data and I will highlight all of the department field right there. And I will compare that in criteria 2 against consulting. Click OK. And you can see here, especially if I format this, that we're talking about just over $1 million spent on salaries for consultants in Los Angeles. And then if I switch to San Mateo, we're talking just under $5 million on consultants. Durango, under 300 grand. Fountain Valley, almost $1 million, etc. So now what I need to do is create a calculation here that rolls up everybody who's not a consultant. And the easiest way to do that is to add up everybody who works in Fountain Valley and then subtract out specifically the consultants from Fountain Valley. That's the easiest way to make this calculation work. So I could use SUMIF because I'm only using one criteria here, but you know, why not use SUMIFs and leave yourself some flexibility? I'll go here to the Formulas tab, use my Math and Trig drop-down menu and pick SUMIFs right there. Sum range, again, this is all the salaries in the G column from G5 all the way down to the bottom. The criteria range that we're talking about here, criteria range 1, we need to compare their office right over here from D5 down to D230 against the criteria right there of Fountain Valley. Click OK. Now that's not the right number because we need to take that number and right here at the end in the formula bar, I'll just do a little minus the previous number. And that's it. So now I can see that in Fountain Valley, we're paying 300 grand to people in other departments and almost $1 million to people who are in consulting. But in San Mateo, it's very much skewed the opposite direction. We're paying 6 million to people in other departments and only just under 5 million to people who are in consulting. And if we go to Santa Ana, you know, that sort of thing sort of makes itself apparent. So now what I want to do is I want to create a color-coded chart that has little people on it. Sure, makes sense, right? Now the first thing we need to do is make ourselves a 10 by 10 grid out of our cells. So I'm going to highlight here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and down to 10. And I just need the width and the height to be the same. Now I happen to know that the height of these is currently set to 40 pixels. So I'll just go ahead and squeeze that in until the width is 40 pixels. And you would just want to watch that little indicator there to see that it was 40 there. Oops. Got to do that for all the columns at the same time, excuse me. 40, right there. Perfect. So now I have a 10 by 10 grid. And I'll just take a second here and I'll put in the grid lines so that it's easier to see these. I'll go ahead and put in some outside borders around as a frame, and then go to more borders, and I'll just do a very pale inside border type of thing. There we go. So you can see the little checkerboard pattern that I've got going on here. Now, how am I going to do this with number formatting? What exactly happens there? Well, you can actually see this in action anytime you want to. You just have to pay attention. Let's say that I put the number -500 into this cell right here. Well, normally -500 is black, right? Because it's just text. However, in some formats, in the accounting format, for example, you might decide to turn that red. Notice here that if I hit the little number pop-out button, you can decide in the currency formatting options here whether you want this to be red or not. So maybe I put this in as red right there and click OK. So there's something about number formatting that will allow me to turn this thing red. So how am I going to do that with little people icons? Well, the first thing you need to realize is that this number formatting comes in this little box right here. So you click the little pop-out button, you switch over here to custom, and you see, okay, so there's a normal number over here on the left. That's for positive numbers. And then there's a semicolon, and then in square brackets it says the word red. And so that's for all the negative numbers. So I should be able to have two different values for people who are consultants and people who aren't consultants, for example. So what about if we decided to make all the consultant salaries a 1, and we decided to make all the non-consultant salaries a 0, something like that, or maybe a -1, something along those lines. So if we had a -1, we could definitely turn it red. Well, if we could turn it red, why couldn't we turn it green or purple or whatever color we want? And if it's 1, if we could turn it black, we should be able to turn it purple. So that's the sort of thing we're going for here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all these cells right here, and I'm going to go to my number formatting, click the little pop-out button here, and go to custom. And what you're going to do is the following. In this type box, you're going to put the word red in square brackets, and then a semicolon, and then you're going to put the word green in square brackets, and then you're going to hit OK. Notice here that the 1 turns red on us, and a -1 turns green. Okay, so that's the beginning parts of this. Now, if you do a little research, you'll note that there is a table out there in the world called the Excel color index table, and you can see here the color index numbers. And I'll go ahead and put this, if you check the blog link down below, I'll put this available for download so you guys can get this little code here. So if I said use the color index number 39, for example, I would get this kind of lavender color. And if I said use 50, I'd get this green color, etc. So in the same way that I can say red and green for really simple colors like 3 and 4 over here, I can also pick more aesthetically pleasing colors. So maybe consultants will be 23 and non-consultants will be 24. Maybe I'll go with that. Okay, so let's say that I highlight all these cells again, and I use that same number formatting pop-out button. And this time around, instead of red, I use color 23, and instead of green, I use color 24. Then hit OK. And there it is. You can see that a normal positive one is blue. You can see that a negative one is lavender. Now let me go ahead and make this a little bigger so it's easier to see. There we go. And let's center it in the middle part of the cell. So a -300, for instance, is lavender, and a +300 is blue. That's what we're looking for right there. Okay, so we're looking pretty good there. Now, how do we get this thing to output the right values for consultants versus non-consultants. Well, the way we're going to do that is we're going to do a little logic function that figures out what row and what column we're in and compares that against the values that we're talking about. So we'll start by going to the bottom left-hand corner of this table right here. And what I want really is for this to be a 1, this to be a 2, this to be a 3, this to be a 4, all the way up to 100% up in this corner up here. And based off of whether the percent is bigger or less than the percentage of the consulting as a total of the, so let's try that right here. So I'll go right here and I'll say, what is this as a percentage? 1 million out of the sum total of this little table right here. Okay, so we're talking about 38.6% or 39%. So I would like for 39 of these cubes right here to have a little blue person in them, and then the rest of them to have a little lavender person in them. So I need this to say 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%. How am I going to make that happen? Well, I'm going to use two functions, one of them called rows and the other one called columns. And what this will do is it'll allow me to say from this point there is 1 row and 1 column. At this point there are 2 rows, 2 columns and 1 row. At this point there are 2 columns and 2 rows. There are blah, 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 all the way up. So how do I make that happen? So right here, I need this to be a 1, this to be a 2, this to be a 3. I need this to be an 11, 21, 31, 41. I need this to be 12, 13, 14, etc. So we're going to do equal sign rows from the current position, M11, through M11. But I want to lock down the first one. So click on the first one and hit F11 for it, or excuse me, F4 for it. So that'll be locked down, but the other one will stretch. Close parentheses. And then I want to take how many rows there are, right? So I'm in the first row. The number needs to be a 0. Subtract a 1, and then multiply that whole thing times 10. Then I need to take that whole thing and I need to add it to what column I'm in. So here we go. Plus the number of columns that we're talking about from M11 through M11, locking down the first M11. And this tells me 1, and I autofill it to the right. And you see it gets me all the way to 10. There we go. And then I fill this up. And you see that it gets me all the way up to 91. And so I should be able to highlight all these, fill these calculations up like that, take the formatting off of it, and that's it. And it, it says 100 up in the top right-hand corner, obviously, but just pound signs up there. Okay, so now we've got a bunch of numbers, and we just want to compare each of these as if they were percentages against this value of 39% right here. Because if it's in the first 39%, that person's a consultant. If it's in the other ones, then it is then they're not a consultant. Okay, so here we're going to change this calculation. Just double click on that first cell, and we're going to make this now an if question. If this calculation, which came out with the number 1, is less than or equal to that percentage number, which is 39% right here, cell G13. Let's make sure we lock it down using the F4 key on the keyboard. Times 100, because of course we're comparing percentages against non-percentages. So there you go, times 100. Okay, if that is true, if it's less than or equal to 39%, then quotation marks C, that person is a consultant, comma, if it's not, quotation marks O, that person is an other type of employee. So this first one comes out as a C. I autofill that across to the right. I see a bunch of C's. That's looking pretty good so far. I autofill up. There it is. So let's see whether this worked or not. This whole first row, that's 1 to 10%. This whole second row, that's 11 to 20%. This whole third row is 21 to, excuse me, this is 11 to 20%. This is 21 to 30%. And then this is 31, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then boom, between 38 and 39, that's where we roll over to the other folks. This 39% is actually 38.68%. So you can see where that switches over from C to O. Bam, we got it just right here. Looking great. Now, what we want, very simply here, is instead of outputting C's and O's, let's highlight all these. Instead of a C, we want to output a 1. And instead of an O, we want to output a -1. Ooh, looking very good. Look at all those blues and look at all those lavenders. Oh, we are so close right here. So now the last thing we've got to do is figure out how in the world we can get all these ones to turn into little people. Okay, we can do this. Stick with me, everybody. These little people happen to be icons, as you can see right up here in the top left-hand corner, in a font called Web Symbols. So you guys almost certainly have like Wingdings and Webdings and other sorts of things like that installed on your computer. If you go to a cell, you go to the Insert tab at the top of your screen, and you go over here to Symbol, you'll see that, you know, in any one of these fonts, like if I go down here to Wingdings, right? Wingdings has, you know, all sorts of different icons, arrows, and all sorts of different things. So I was looking for a person. Well, I could insert a smiley face or a hand or something like that, but I didn't like any of these. And I looked at the Wingdings too, and I saw printers and telephones. And again, if your data is different from mine, maybe one of these works out just fine. Wingdings 3, lots of arrows. That can be very useful. Webdings up here. You know, we have buses and we have little speech bubbles and globes and all sorts of cool stuff in here. But basically, at the end of the day, I went searching for, and you can see there's little people right here, little guy, little lady right there. But if you want to, you can go searching for fonts that have interesting symbols in them. And I happened to land on, it was Web Symbols Liga. And in Web Symbols Liga, you got this nice person icon right here. And you, in fact, actually have a double person icon over here. And you have things like the Facebook icon and all sorts of things in here. So find a font that has a symbol that works for you. It doesn't matter what that symbol is, just find something that works for your situation. I happen to find Web Symbols Liga and this little guy right here. And then you can insert that guy, click close. Okay, so we have our symbol in this cell. And here's the important part. When we look at this symbol and then we look up in the formula bar, you can see right up there in the formula bar, what's really in there is a period. That's the position in Web Symbols Liga that is, that's the person. So now instead of outputting a 1, we actually need these calculations here to output a period, and then Web Symbols Liga will convert it into a person head. Okay, so we need to do two things here. Highlight the cells and have it output a period instead of outputting the number 1. So we go to number formatting up here at the top, click the little pop-out button right here. And what we do is instead of general, we choose to type in quote, period, quote, which is different than just a period because that signifies where the decimal point is. We just literally want it to output a period. So if it's a positive number, output a period that's color 23. If it's a negative number, output a period that's color 24. We hit OK. Oh, we're so close. You can see all these periods. Some of them are blue, some of them are lavender. So home stretch here, we go to the font box up in the top left-hand corner. We switch over to Web Symbols Liga. The interesting thing here is that my font size, I actually tried this once before and made a quick mistake. And I was like, what happened here? My font size is a little too big, so the icons won't fit. So I'll just decrease the font size there and then just make sure that they're aligned to the bottom. And that's it. That is how you make a little person waffle chart. Now, notice over here that I had to go with 3, 2, and 1 because in your number formatting, you can decide, okay, if it's greater than 2, then do this color. If it's greater than 1, do this color. And if it's not, then do this color. But you can see again, we're outputting periods over and over and over again. So you can do multiple different layers of this by just making sure that instead of outputting 1 and -1, now we output 1, 2, and 3, or we output 1, 0, and -1, or whatever the case may be. And that allows you to make your little chart there. So let me just go ahead and format the background a little bit so maybe they stand out a little better. And that's that. So that was my longest video so far. What'd you guys think? You want more of this type of thing? Because we can do some stuff together. All right. Comment down below if you found this interesting and useful, and let me know if there's a different type of chart that you're interested in trying to build. Thanks, everybody.